and I get a letter from the government where they put in a motion and they told the judge, Your Honor, we'd like to stay the proceedings so that the court can appoint a lawyer for Mr. Cox to determine whether he wants to proceed forward with the evidentiary hearing, or if he would like to basically negotiate a Rule 35. So they fly this lawyer down, right? Her name is Esther. She flies down to the court appoints me an attorney. They fly down. Esther comes and meets me, and I go into the lawyer, whatever, inmate conference room, and I sit there, and then she says, "Listen, they're offering you one level." And I went, "Okay." And she said, so I said, "Well, I want 4 levels." No, I don't know. I think I said 4 or 5 levels, whatever it
What
was.
was a level going to get you? A couple years?
One level would, at that point, one level would have gotten me 40 months off, 3.5
Oh,
years.
that's a
40 months.
lot.
I had a 26-year sentence.
Right, but I mean, it's
I wanted
something.
no. I'm sorry. One level was 30 months.
Okay.
30 months. So I was like, no, I'm not. She goes, well, maybe I can go back and try and get you 2 levels. And I was like, what is that? So 2 levels isn't, you would think 2 levels would be 60 months, but it's not. It's like 50. It ends up being like 56 months. So it's like 4 levels less than that next, 4 months less than the next one. So I was like, yeah. I said, listen, I want an evidentiary hearing. And she was like, what? Well, Matt, what makes you think you can win an evidentiary hearing? And I explained to her, I'm going to do this, I'm going to do that, I'm going to do all these things. And she goes, well, look, your motion is written well, like the paperwork's written well. You're doing great legal work, but I just don't think you're going to win if you proceed like this. I think you should take the 1 level, and I can try and get you 2 levels. And I said, well, I didn't write the legal work. I said, Frank Amadeo did. And she goes, who's Frank Amadeo? And I explained who Frank Amadeo is. And then she says, you're taking advice from a guy who believes he's going to take over the world, that thinks he's hearing the voice of God. She goes, and this is the guy, by the way, that he's had his legal rights taken away. Like he's been appointed a guy who, like, an overseer, somebody who has to,
like if you're mentally slow and you can't sign contracts.
Correct.
A conservator.
Thank you. And that's what she says. She's like, this is a guy who's mentally, unstable.
But he's gotten you more progress.
Right. And I said, yeah, well, here's the problem. All the sane lawyers on the street told me I couldn't get this done. And she goes, well, I don't think you'll win this. And I said, and yet they sent you down here to try and convince me to.
You're going to get 2 levels, or at least 1. That's
right. And I was like, and I said the same thing. I said the same thing to both lawyers. I said, look, if they could so easily beat me, why don't they just crush me? Why do this? And she was like, well, let me go back. So she goes back and we go back and forth, back and forth. And eventually what she says is that the U.S. attorney has agreed that she'll go to court and tell the judge to reduce my sentence by 1 level. And I can argue for more. So Frank says, go back and make your argument. So I go all the way back they move me all the way back to Atlanta, get back in front of the judge. The FBI agent comes and talks on my behalf. My old lawyer that I filed the 2255 against gets on the stand and speaks on my behalf. The guy that did the ethics and fraud class speaks on my behalf. Like, all these people get up on the stand and say, no, he deserves something. He does, So the judge, we were asking for like 6 levels, which is like 15 years or something ridiculous. And the judge and the U.S. attorney is asking for 1 level off, which is like 30 months. And so the judge said, I'll never forget, he said, the government's asking for 30 months off. And he goes, that's not nearly enough for what this defendant has done. He said, Mr. Cox, you're asking for 15 years off. And he goes, that was never going to happen. And I was like, oh, shit. And he goes, so I'm going to give you 3 levels off, which was 7 years. And I was like,
so you were already about 4 or 5 in.
No, I'm going on 7 years in right
So
now.
that's 19 and next down to 12. You had good time, blah, blah, blah. So you're now looking, you're under a decade left, maybe.
Yeah, I could do
years.
maybe I got maybe 6 or 7 more years left. 7 more. And here's the thing: what I thought about at first, I was just like, I couldn't believe it. But by the time I actually got into the van and they were driving me back to the holdover, I remember thinking, well, wait a second. You didn't think you could do 7 years and you just did it. And now you have 7 more. So you can do that. So, fucking, rub some fucking dirt in it, man up, and just fucking, that's just the way it is. So I remember I went back to Coleman. I walked up to Frank and I said, Frank, I got 7 years off my sentence. And he goes, I know, I've already heard. And he sat there and he said, I don't, it's not that I'm not appreciative. I said, but I was hoping for more. And he goes, so was I. And he said, it looks like we're going to have to eat this elephant one spoonful at a time. He said, something will come up. We'll be able to file again. He said, we're going to get some more time off for you. And I went, okay, well, I appreciate that. And that was it. That's all he said. And, it was a nice thing to say, but I didn't believe that.
Were you
So
working on his book at this point?
I think at this point had just kind of, when I got back, I kind of started working on his
So
book.
it was like a trade.
It wasn't a trade. I wanted to write his book. I'd never heard a story anything like his story. It was phenomenal. It really is amazing. So I think shortly after that, I started working on it, which gave me a reason to kind of interact with him. Well, here's what happened is there was a guy named on the compound. His name was His name was Ronnie Wilson. Ronnie Wilson was there. I think he was like 61, 62 years old. I'm not sure. He was in his early 60s. So Ronnie Wilson had run a Ponzi scheme for over $100 million. He'd lost $57 million of investors' money. And the investors were like churches, pension funds, retirees,
So he's a truly bad, like a sociopath.
Yeah. And this is the thing is that, look, despite all of that, like I liked Ron. Like he was funny. We were both a very, very dark sense of humor. He reminds me of my dad. He was just a very gruff guy. Anyway, what happens is, he was cooperating against several of the co-defendants in his case. So we're walking around the compound and he
now
said,
at the low is there everybody's do they even bother you about, oh, you're a snitch? That's not even.
I mean, there are some idiots that walk around doing that, but everybody kind of just shrugs it off. Like nobody's getting stabbed because they're a snitch. Nobody's saying you can't walk their yard. Like, fuck you, bro. Like if you don't want me looking into your case. I look into your case. If I order the Freedom of Information Act, God knows what's going to show up. They don't want that. They all talk about it. They whisper between each other's back, but nobody's getting in your face about it. It's just gossip. It's all a bunch of gossip. So anyway, and look, I'm openly fucking, like, at this point, if somebody comes up to me, and the guys would used to come up to me all the time and they go like, yo, Cox, how much time you got? And I could be like 26 years. And they go, damn, bro. And I go, yeah, but somebody might fuck up and tell me where there's a body. I could be home tomorrow. And they'd be like, damn, Cox, it's like that. I said, it's exactly like that. Like, I'm not here to make friends. I don't want to be here. I'll never talk to you again. We wouldn't have talked on the street. We don't even talk now. So anyway, and there are some guys that are just openly walking around talking about it, what they've done, what they're doing, what they would do, So I'm walking around talking to Ron Wilson. We're walking around the compound. He keeps mentioning that the feds aren't going to reduce his sentence, even if he cooperates. Like, even if these guys get arrested and convicted, they're not going to reduce my sentence. And I go, why do you keep saying that? And he says that they think I've hidden Ponzi scheme money. And I'm like, well, I mean, but you didn't, because he actually dug up like $5 or $6 million in gold, in silver bars and cash and gave it to the feds because he really had buried, excuse me. Oh, sorry. He really had buried money. So
the feds, you can really trade money a lot, like drug cases. You can trade money for years a lot of time.
Absolutely. If you give up money, they'll reduce your sentence. So we're walking around. he keeps saying they think I've hidden money. I'm like, well, you haven't, so don't worry about it. And at some point, and this is months into this, one day we're walking and he says, and I go, why do you keep saying that? And he goes, can I trust you? And I go, probably not. Now he knows I just got back from fucking sentencing and I'm like, probably not. And he goes, I did hide some money. And I went, really? He's like, yeah, it's not much. It's a few $100,000. Like my wife has it, but I'm getting divorced. He's like, my wife has it, and my brother is holding about, I think he said his brother's holding like 30,000. He is, but my wife has found out that I was having an affair, and my fear is she's going to give it to the feds just to make sure that I don't get any time off my sentence because they were in the middle of a divorce. So, okay. Well, I call my lawyer maybe a week or two later. Like I wasn't even calling about this because I thought to myself, that's not enough. If they recover a couple 100,000, they're not going to reduce my sentence. Like if I go and say, hey, I know where there's some money hidden, this guy, if I do all that, they're not going to help me. They didn't want to give me any money or give me any time off when I had it coming. So I don't say anything. Probably 2-3 weeks later, I call my lawyer because she was supposed to send me my transcripts from my resentencing. And because I wanted it to put some of the excerpts in my book because I hadn't published the book. So I called her up and I said, hey, I never got that. She's, oh, Matt, I'm so sorry. I forgot to order it. Blah, blah, blah. And she goes, oh, so I'll order it. She goes, so what's going on in there? I said, nothing. And she goes, nothing? You don't want to talk about anything? And I was thinking to myself, like, you never wanted to talk to me when you were representing me. So I was like, I said, something weird did happen the other day. Listen to this. And I tell her, and she goes, hold on, let me look this guy up. And I can hear, and she goes, oh, wow, this is a bad guy. Oh, wow. She goes, yeah, let me make a phone call. Let me see if I can, maybe we can work something out here. Hold on.
In a lot of what federal prosecutors, who they choose to be kinder to or put the hammer and focus on is the press coverage, how bad, he ripped off. Like that makes a difference. That's part of the reason you got so much time. You were on the run. The women said you Don Juan'd them. If your case had been the same amount of money, but you had a different kind of personality and there was no women and you had turned yourself in, you probably wouldn't have got as much time in the first place.
I'd have probably got 6 or 7. I'd have probably got 6 or 7 years.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. If I'd gone on the run and been in the paper and all the media.
Oh, so that really screwed you. So for all of you people, not that any criminals watch this, but like that makes a difference. You don't want to be a target. You don't want them saying, yeah, all of the criminals are bad guys, but he's a bad guy. He taunted us. We don't like who he victimized. He thinks he's smarter than the system.
Right.
So you were one of the ones they made an example out of.
Yes, exactly. So let's say a week later, I'm in the unit and the CO comes up to me and he goes, Cox, he goes, you got to go to SIS. SIS is like their internal security. And I go, okay. I'm like, but I wasn't thinking much of it because I'm writing a bunch of guys' stories and I would have their paperwork mailed into me. And so every once in a while, SIS would call me in because they'd be like, hey, you got this guy, John Boziak's fucking police report being mailed into you from the sheriff's department.
Oh, like, he was a fraudster too, right?
Yeah. Or anybody's. It could be, it could be Dennis Caroni. It could be anybody.
That's like what a gang might be doing, getting someone's in. Okay.
Right. Legal. I mean, technically, I'm not allowed to have another inmate's paperwork.
Yeah.
But they knew what I was doing. I got guys in Rolling Stone magazine. I've got books being published. They know what I'm doing. So they call me and they go, well, what is it? What's going on? They go, well, what's the story? You writing a story on him? Yeah. And they go, okay. And they give it to me. So I walk in and I'm thinking they're going to ask me about some paperwork. Instead, the guy calls me in his office, sits me down, picks up the phone, dials the phone and hands it to me. And I don't know what's going on. You got to talk to this guy. I go, okay. So I get on the phone and it's a guy from the Secret Service. And he says, listen, I understand where Ron Wilson has hidden Ponzi scheme money. And I'm like, holy shit. And I go, well, I do, but I said, I'm not just going to tell you. I want paperwork. I want
you learned your lesson.
Well, and I know he's not going to be able to get me anything in writing, but I said, I want something in writing saying that I said, because it's not a lot of money. I said, but it is a little bit of it. It's a few $100,000. And he goes, okay, I'll see what I can get for you. So he gives me his email address. I put him on my email by core links, and maybe 2 weeks later, he sends me an email from the U.S. attorney saying, if Mr. Cox can help us recover a substantial amount of money or give us substantial assistance, we'll consider it. Or any information he gives us leads to money being returned,
Seizure of money. Okay.
seizure of money, or the indictment of individuals, we'll consider this substantial assistance.
But
So I
you've
said,
heard
okay,
this one before.
yeah, but that's all you're going to get.
Okay.
So I give him the information.
Hey, how many guys are using their core links to talk to prosecutors and FBI? More than a few, huh?
Yeah, I'm sure not. Yeah, probably. I mean, you'd never know, but yeah. So I start emailing these guys back, and they're like, "Hey, find out this. Hey, find out that." And I'm like, "Find out? Like, how the fuck am I supposed to find out that? Like, I don't even know who that person is." They're asking me to engage in conversations with this guy about things that are going on in the case. So, I slowly work things into a conversation and try and, get information out of him. But, it was very little information. But the point is that after about 3 or 4 months, maybe 6 months, they indict Ron Wilson, his wife, and his brother. They bring them in. Well, they don't indict him. First, they just call them in. When they call them in to be questioned, the wife shows up and she says, I don't know anything about any money. I don't have any money. And she leaves. The brother shows up the next day for his interview. He walks in with his lawyer and $150,000 in cash. Wilson told me he had about 20 or 30,000 he was holding. Said it's 150.
A lot more, yeah.
Right. So then the next morning, his wife comes in and says, look, I lied to you the other day, and gives them 350,000 in gold, bullion,
so they got $500,000
cash. Right. So they then indict them. So I know Wilson and they have been indicted. They tell me this on core links, the Secret Service. So I know this is coming. And so
does Wilson have any inkling at you?
Oh, he has no clue. He doesn't know. He just thinks they just randomly called them in and they gave him up. He does know that. So one day I'm walking down the sidewalk, and he sees me and he goes, Cox. And I was like, oh shit, fuck. He's in his 60s, but and I was probably in my mid.
He's not going to assault you, but you don't want to deal with the argument.
I don't want to, even if he does assault me, like I know I could, I'd probably knock him out. But the point is like, it doesn't matter. I don't want to go. I don't want to get shipped. I want to go to the shoe. I don't want to deal with this.
Yeah.
He comes up to me and he says, I said, yeah, what's up? He said, you're not going to believe this. And I said, what? He said, I've been indicted. What? Yeah. He said, he tells me they called my wife in and my brother, and they ended up recovering $500,000. And I went, I said, $500,000? I thought you said it was a couple 100,000. And he goes, well, I couldn't trust you. I was like, Ron, I can't believe, are you me? I thought we were friends.
You know what? You should get into acting.
No, stop. So listen, so he
You're taller than Tom Cruise.
So he goes, so he's like, yeah, I can't. I said, oh man. He's like, yeah, I don't think they indicted him yet. Maybe. He's like, yeah, they're gonna indict me or whatever it was, or they've already indicted me. So I'm sorry, man. I woke up at 3:00 in the morning. Somebody called about the storm. My mother-in-law called my wife and woke us up. Anyway, so I'm exhausted. But so here's what happens. He like a couple days later, they put him on a bus. They move him back to South Carolina. He gets sentenced. He gets 6 months added onto his sentence.
So you didn't even really hurt him too bad.
But not just that. When COVID hit, they let him out on compassionate release. So he literally did, on like a 20-year sentence, he did like 8 years. So his initial sentence was 19 and a half years. It went up to 20. He got out in 8. Like, it didn't harm him at all. Now, and his brother and wife, who are also both in their 60s, they both had to do community service.
Probation. Okay.
1 year probation. Well, I actually think it was 1 year and like 40 hours of community service over the course of a year or something like that. So he ended up, so he leaves, and 3 or 4 months later, Nothing's happened. So we wait almost a year. And he's been resentenced and nothing's happened. So after a year, we file another 2255 and we go back.
Amadeo does. Amadeo,
Amadeo
or,
does.
okay.
Yeah, Frank Amadeo
So he
does.
knows what you did.
Yes. Oh yeah, he's the whole time he's coaxing me. He's okay. Make sure you print that email out. Make sure you print that one out. See if you can get them to admit that your information has helped further their investigation, because that's what it says in the definition of what a Rule 35 is. So I'm like, I don't feel like this is helping you guys. Do you feel like this is helping further your investigation? And they're like, absolutely, you're helping further our investigation. Your information, they're like lining up all these things to keep me going. I'm like, I literally have them writing the definition practically to what you get. Like, that's how the coaxing gets them to a point where they've almost covered every single thing. So anyway, but I don't get anything. So we file another 2255. We start going back and forth with the government. At one point, the government, they're like winning. It seems like they're winning, right? Even though we've been through this, and they're denying that they ever had an agreement with me. So we send
those bastards.
Right. We see. I can't believe the government would lie. So we send them the email from the U.S. attorney where he says, "I'll reduce your sentence if I'll consider it." So the idea that you're saying you've never heard about this and you don't know anything about it, yet
you're lying to there. He's lying to the judge.
Right. Yet you sent this email to the Secret Service agent I'm working with. Anyway, what ends up happening is, because otherwise it's just going to drag it out, they end up appointing another attorney. That attorney flies down. She comes in the conference room, inmate conference room, and she sits down with me and she's like, look, I'm afraid they're going to beat us at trial. They're offering you one level.
30 months.
Yeah. No, now it's only one level. Now we're down to a level is only like 18 months off. No, it's not even 18 months. It's like 14 months off. Because remember, I got 3 levels last time, and every level you get down, it reduces the amount of months.
Oh, so this is considered your 4th level, not a new 1st level.
Correct.
Okay.
So I'm like, yeah. So I'm like, well, Frank said, this, and Frank said that, and she's like, who's Frank? And I tell her who Frank is, and she's like, you're listening. You're taking. By the way, this chick went to Harvard. She goes, you're taking the advice of a mentally unstable, bipolar inmate.
Frank thinks big, and he succeeds sometimes.
Exactly. And she's like, over my advice. And I'm thinking over a Harvard educated lawyer's advice. Yes. And I said, Frank thinks we can get 4 levels. So she goes
4 more levels.
4 more levels. She goes back. We start negotiating back and forth. And what I told her was, Frank said to ask for 4 levels. So she's asking for 4 levels. They come back and they say 2. We go back and they say back. And this happens over the course of 6 months. Finally, they come back and they said 3 levels. If he doesn't accept the 3 levels, then we're gonna bring him. We're gonna continue on. I think they were gonna continue on with the proceedings. And so what happens is, I say I'll accept the 3 levels. And 3 levels, that's 5 years off my sentence.
So you're down to, you got 2-3 years left.
I got like less than 2 years.
Oh, wow. Oh, because more time has passed, right?
Yeah, more time has passed. So with the 5 levels, I got like less than 2 years. Like I got like 18 months or something like that. And I'm thinking I'm going to get a year halfway house, maybe.
Did you do RDAP yet?
Yeah, I think I had 2 years left at this point. And I was going to do RDAP, but I didn't want to complete RDAP. I only went into RDAP because they came to me and they said, look, we're going to move you to a camp. And my mother used to come see me every
RDAP's the drug program that everybody can get, right?
Right. Not everybody, but yeah, you have to, in your PSI, you have to say you have a drug habit, which I did.
Did?
No, I just said that. Like everybody says it. So what happens is they're telling me they're going to move me. And I'm like, I don't want to be moved, So I'm saying here's what I want is I'm going to go into RDAP.
So you stayed at Coleman your whole time.
Yeah. Yeah. So I go into RDAP so that they won't send me to a to a camp. And I stay there for about 5 months, 6 months. And then when they put what's called a management variable on you, I drop out of the program because the management variable is supposed to be on you for like a year. So maybe 3 or 4 months later, my counselor comes and says, we're going to move you to a camp. And I go, what are you talking about? I got a management variable. They go, yeah, but that was for RDAP. I said, yeah, but it's good for a year. And she said, yeah, but I can request to have it taken off. And I was like, really? Like, I didn't know that. Like, nobody had ever mentioned that. And she's like, yeah, in special circumstances. And so you shouldn't have never even been here, Cox.
But
So
you're comfortable.
I'm super comfortable. And I've written a ton of stories. Like, I got a bunch of stories. I'm working on stories. I got like 3 or 4 people lined up to write stories. I'm enjoying my time. This is how I'm doing my time. Like,
And you did like 25 books, right?
I did 24, about 20, 22 or 23 synopses, and I did 7 books.
Mm.
So, I don't want to leave. And my mom comes to see me every 2 weeks. And, she's old, she's in a wheelchair, and my brothers and sisters are telling me that this is what's keeping her alive.
Mm.
I go to a camp, the closest camp is 4 hours away, and I probably won't even go to that camp. Like, she's never going to be able to see me. So what happens is I say, oh, I'm going back into RDAP. So I go back into RDAP. I stay there for 6, 7 months. I drop out of RDAP once I get my halfway house time. So I'm out of RDAP for like a month, maybe 2 months, and then I go to the halfway house.
Damn. So how much time do you do in total?
Almost 13 months. It's like, I'm sorry. Almost 13 years. It's
Which
like,
is what you thought you should have got in the first place.
yes. Yeah.
But you had to work for it.
Yeah.
If you hadn't have met Amadeo,
I'd be in, my out date was 2030 with good time. I'd be in prison right now.
God damn.
I still have 6 more years to go.
Are they going to keep you on probation?
No, I'm
Are
saying
you in federal probation? You'd still have 6 more years. Are you off your probation?
I just got off like a month and a half ago. Yeah, 5 years. I've been out for 5 years now.
Was that hard?
It was for me because I have a different probation than other people because I owe $6 million. So what they do is every month you have to fill out a financial statement. Sometimes they would request copies of bank statements, credit card statements.
How much do they take? Like 50%?
No, how can they take 50%? I couldn't survive. They have to give you enough to live. So there's a base, which is like $150 a month, and then they take 25% of anything you make.
Oh, that's a lot, but I mean,
significant, which is significant,
Yeah. So go join Matt's Patreon.
Right. So now I'm off paper. I'm waiting to try and negotiate something with the new.
They can't really enforce. I had a 48. I mean, my fine was much smaller. They multiplied my marijuana and came up with 48,000 in street value. And so I paid while I was on probation. But once the probation ends, because what I found, that's not a debt. It can't go on your credit report. You didn't borrow the money from the government. State of Arizona can keep me from getting a driver's license or something, but it's not a debt. And your credit report is debts.
Right. What they're basically hoping for is that you'll buy a house and go to sell it in 5 years or 10 years. And then when they run your name, that judgment will come up and they'll say, oh, he's supposed to get a check for 200,000. They'll go, yeah, but he owes us 6 million. We'll take that.
Do they take your tax returns?
Oh, I never get my tax returns.
Oh, so they take all that. But I'm sure you adjust it so there's not much return.
No, I pay in. I pay in every. Keep in mind too, I'm self-employed, right? So, I pay in every year. So, and then I'm not going to buy a house. I'll never buy a house in my name. My wife might buy a house. I might get somebody to own or finance a house in a trust or something, but I'm not going to buy it. So, there's ways around it, I'm sure.
But
I haven't gotten to that point though, because I'm still fucking renting an apartment. Matter of fact, today I got a rent renewal from my landlord saying, "Hey,
raised."
Yeah, like 4.2 points, 4%.
Is that like the legal limit?
I don't know. The guy's very analytical, right?
Well, there's caps on the states have not everywhere, but a lot of places have caps on each year how much.
I don't think Florida does, but he only does it typically like 3%, and this time he's like 4.2%.
Inflation.
but I think Florida, if you own a home, he's been getting hit hard by homeowners insurance, and Florida has shot through the roof.
But
So,
you're not near hurricane country.
I mean, no, I don't feel we are, but they're hitting everybody.
Oh, they spread it out across the state
Yeah, it's not like
because people at the coast wouldn't even be able to get it at all.
correct. So yeah,
So you're subsidizing people with multi-million-dollar homes on the coast. Welcome to America.
So do you have any other questions? What's going on? I feel like I rambled through the whole thing,
No,
but
no. That was great. So your experience, I just want to go. So there's a lot of prison YouTubers, and I guess they were all tough guys in the USP or the county. But even
right.
for me, like, I mean, I was in, for some of my time, I had bad charges. I was in maximum security, the county jail, Detroit. You know, the people that are getting in fights and all that all the time, a lot of that is they're stealing cookies, they're talking crazy, they cheated cards in maximum security with someone who carries a knife. Like, uh, so your experience there definitely was danger, but if you can avoid it.
Well, I stayed to myself. Listen, and I've interviewed a lot of guys that have gone to pens, state pens, and gone to state pens and federal pens, and they'll all kind of tell you like, look, if you don't want to be a part of that, you don't have to be a part of that, right? Like if you're not going to be gambling and getting yourself in trouble, most of the guys that get involved in all that stuff, they get involved for protection because they know they're fuck ups. They know they're going to run up gambling debts. They know they run their fucking mouth. They
They
know
want
they're
to get high.
yeah, they're on the gang shit where they want to be able to be like, oh fuck that motherfucker. We got like it gives them
Gangs cause you more
excitement,
problems than they probably solve.
and it makes their lives exciting in there.
And if they can't read, and I'm not being funny because it's sad,
Yeah,
if you can't read, you got to do something.
right. So I mean I went in there and I was like, look, I mean I'm gonna reinvent myself. I'm gonna figure out something to do, and I'm gonna get out, and I'm gonna start a channel. I'm gonna start a YouTube
Now
channel.
you sell art, you make art and have art for like.
Yeah, I that's what I did when I first got out. I was just selling art. So I did that for a couple of years. And then as the YouTube thing started taking off, the art, there was the art dissipated because even though it's funny, I'm working on two paintings right now. Like I've been working on them all morning.
You enjoy doing art though, right? Or
Yeah.
depend.
No, well, I mean, look, sometimes if it's some chick saying, hey, will you paint my cat? Like, no, I don't want to paint your cat, But if I'm lucky that a lot of the guys that asked me
Oh,
to
you're
do
doing request. You're doing basically
sometimes.
commissioned artwork.
Sometimes I just pick like I'm like, fuck it, I'm gonna paint 3 Biggie Smalls because I know they'll sell, and they do. They all sell
Do you
out.
like do contests or get Patreon? Sometimes you give them away and different stuff.
No, I'm not giving anything else.
Do your Patreon subscribers get a discount?
Well, I did have a Patreon subscription where you got a painting every month, and I would make these
Boy,
screens.
that's a lot of work, ain't it?
It was more work because I was hoping to get it up to 4,000 or 5,000, and then it probably wouldn't be that much work. But it never got more than 1,000 more. I never got more than like 6 or 7 people doing it.
Oh,
And
at
then
that tier. Yeah.
they do 3 or 4 months, and then they drop out, and it's like it's just not worth it. So I stopped
Yeah.
doing it.
It's an interesting idea, but yeah. Well, you experiment with different stuff. So what's the future holding for Matt Cox? More of this?
More, I mean, it's just more true crime, more YouTube.
Are you writing books and
I am. It's funny. The Amadeo thing. I'm working with a producer right now on trying to get a documentary made on him, on his
is he
story.
out of prison?
Oh yeah, he's got himself out. He didn't do the 20.
You talked to him? Oh, he didn't do the 20. How much did he do?
I think he did like 9 years
So he
on
got it
20.
cut in half.
Yeah,
How many people? I mean, I know you don't know what went on with everybody, so you're just guessing, but in your guesstimation, how many people with longer type sentences are able to get much time off? Not many.
not many, not many. Very, very few. Unfortunately, it's very
So
difficult.
probably a lot are eligible or could be eligible.
I mean, I don't know if they're
Because the
eligible.
main thing you got off for was, I mean, the snitching thing at the end got some more off, but a lot of it was like teaching a course, like that's didn't hurt anybody. Like,
Yeah, that's what got me the 7 years. Listen,
that probably made you look because that was actually useful to society.
I mean, that's the way they pitched it, yes. But doing American Greed, like, I don't know. I
No,
think
no, but I'm saying that course, that's a real, I mean,
the course, yeah, but I think the U.S. attorney just she wanted to be interviewed too, and they interview me,
oh,
they're
for
going to
American
her.
Greed. Yeah, right.
Yeah, yeah. So, yeah, I listen. I got very. I mean, I worked at it, but I got very, very lucky.
Are you getting any action? Do you have any movie option stuff for any of your books?
So a guy in LA, a company called Foundation Media, they optioned my life rights. But will that happen? I don't know. You
Any
know.
work going on with it?
Yeah, they're always doing something. They're always working. Listen, I'm working with a company called Law and Crime, and they've got like 8 of my projects that they're
Oh,
turning.
Law and Crime Network. Are
Yes,
they the
yeah,
ones that show always the live trials and different stuff?
yeah. That's one of the things they
Yeah,
do.
yeah.
They do like True Crime Daily or Crime Daily, and they've got a
Yeah, that's
bunch
a
of.
big operation. Yeah.
Yeah, and they're working on like 8 of my stuff, and they're
Are they
supposed to be.
associated with a big network? Are they like a branch of something, or you don't know? They
I know
seem well funded.
they have a production wing that is constantly. They have 3 series going right now, and they're trying to get. They're also doing a like docu series, 3-part, 4-part docu series, which is what they're trying to turn several of my projects into. Will it happen? I hope so. They seem confident. They're certainly making enough phone calls. Like they're calling these people. They're setting stuff up. They're sending out agreements. But listen. I don't believe anything till I see it.
That's
I
for
hope
sure in
so.
Hollywood. That's for sure.
I hope it works.
Well,
But I do YouTube and I write stories and I do keynote
oh, and you
speak.
get some money from your Kindle sales, and there's a couple income streams. Yeah,
Yes.
a
Yeah, I
little
got
bit.
that's
Yeah.
it's like no one thing makes up every, but the combination of all of it pays all my bills and then some. So I'm super happy. Like things are going very well for me.
Awesome. Well, Mad Cox, he has a big, huge channel. Just type Mad Cox into YouTube. He interviews, I mean, beyond his own story, he interviews lots of interesting people across. I mean, people talking to people that were big drug traffickers that talk about the cartel, other different type of fraudsters. He just did something that got 1 million views about the Fire Stick King, and
Oh, yeah.
so all different stuff. Go check out Mad Cox. There's a Patreon, but go follow his YouTube. Al Profit, thank you. And I'll reach out to you and we'll maybe you can hook me up with a couple of your people.
That'd be great.
Thank
All
you
right.
so much, man. Have a
Thank
great
you.
day. Bye.
All right. See ya.